Are you letting fear, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and the opinions of others get in the way of your business success? If the answer is yes, then you want to watch this video. I sit down with my girl Kunbi and we talk about why people are not launching that great idea that you came up with years ago, and we also share strategies on how to overcome that fear of launching that great business idea or product that you have created. So I hope that this inspires you. I know that you're going to leave inspired, and I hope that this pushes you to action. Enjoy. All right, so hey everyone, I'm super excited to have my girl Kunbi, and I'm gonna have her pronounce her last name because just like my name, it could be complicated and butchered. But she's a total badass. She wears many hats and wears them well, and she's a lunch
Lunch and yes.
lunch.
I love that we tried
That
this.
should be on your Instagram bio, or should we just make it a hashtag and just brand it. But I love that you're such a go-getter. So I thought it would be great to bring you on the podcast because I mean we can talk about so many things. We've had you coach with our group and so many things inside Creative's Corner. But I decided to share you with the world today, and just kind of talk about something that people are so afraid to touch, right? Like launching and just going for it. Sounds very simple, right? You have an idea, you launch it, but most people are so, for different reasons, don't. And as a coach, and you've worked with so many creatives and entrepreneurs, and it's still something that we're trying to figure out. I know like there are internal and external reasons, and I want to talk about that, but I'm super excited to dive into this topic with no other than you. All right. So give us full name. I know it.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Kunbi Odubogun. I promise it looks like it's spelt. So usually you just read through the consonants and you get there. But yeah, so I'm Kunbi. I am the founder of Legally Set. I am also the founder of Perfete. Gosh, like, yes. So let's just go with those two things. But I'm also like a huge encourager of launch that shit, which is basically just you get up and launch that shit because so many things, like Akashi has already said, and we'll talk about, is like so many things happen along the way and everybody gets so overwhelmed with the idea of launching. So yeah, so let's talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just dive right in. So why, like, what are your top reasons, or why do you think people are so afraid to launch what they're, so passionate about? Or should I even say, are you passionate about something if you don't launch it?
Well, I mean, you are, right? Like, I feel like you can be passionate about something and so many things will still like quench that fire. I feel like it is. Like 1 minute you find it burning, and then the longer it sits and the longer you have time, I feel like personally anyway, the longer you have time for that other half of your brain to come in and discuss in full detail why this isn't going to work, the faster it quenches that fire. And then the passion, like you still have the passion. And I find that even with me, there are a lot of things I will see that other people have launched and I'll be like, damn, like,
yeah.
And I still have the passion, but now it's tainted in my head because somebody else has launched it so effortlessly or has done this exact idea and aesthetic that I was going to come in and bring into the business. So I think you can still have a passion and still not launch.
Yeah. But I love what you just said. You said in my head.
Yeah.
Because it's really in our head.
It's literally the beginning and end of many ideas happens in here. Like how it's built. Like for instance, I get my best ideas when I'm in the shower for some reason. I don't know if it's the hot water or what.
Me too.
Dude, like it just becoming like, wait, and I almost want to come out of the thing and just write it down because I don't want it to slip out of my brain. But everything begins and ends in there. I feel like I believe that 100%.
Yeah. So why, in your opinion, do people not take that step? Like just launch it?
I think the first thing I feel like the first fear that's usually in there, and it's not a fear actually, it's just more of an action, is overwhelm. Like you get really overwhelmed with the idea of starting and where would I even begin with this now? Like that's the first thing that comes in. It's like, okay, like where would okay, let's say I have this big dream to start an e-commerce store selling like baskets or something like that, like intricate baskets, for instance. And I'm like, okay, like, where would I even start going with that? Like, where would I start going with like the sourcing of the items, or like where would I even start? Like, there's so many people that are already doing it. And guess what? Once you start even saying it out, like especially if you have one of these smartphones, like Instagram, all of a sudden you start finding that you see more of that stuff out
Yeah.
there, like, because of
Yeah.
the algorithm, because of the like the ad sourcing. So you see these things and then you even start thinking, okay, somebody else is already doing it. I can't even be bothered. Like, there's already that overwhelm in your head. And I feel like that's the first roadblock in general. It's always the overwhelm of the idea of getting started, because it's like anything else, like even starting a fitness plan or starting something, like, starting a good habits that you're trying to do. The idea of even starting just becomes the overwhelming roadblock that you don't even start. So you find yourself like 12 months later, still at that exact spot, because you can't even like fathom the idea of starting to even look for how you're going to get started with this, especially when other factors start coming in, like money. Like, okay, where am I going to find the money to start this? That's one. But sometimes
money is always a factor.
I mean, money is the first factor, because like, okay, like I do not have $50,000. Where am I going to even start, like, sourcing this kind of money out or something like that? That's always the first. Or like, I don't even know anybody that works in e-commerce. I don't know anybody that works in manufacturing. Like, where am I even going to start with that? But this is the reason why it's always so great. Like, regardless of how much I preach, launch that shit. I think it's okay for you to task yourself with the education. Like, task yourself finding out, like, if you're really serious, like, if like the honest truth is that once people start, like, if we want to be real with each other, if you're really serious, like if you're actually really serious, you do the work. If you're actually really serious, you will source. If you're actually really serious, you will Google, because there's literally nothing up and down that is not available on that internet.
Gotta love Google University. It's tuition is $0 and 0 cents.
Hey, and like, it's like, I think that I've seen situations where people have come to me and said they don't even know where to start, and literally on the first page of Google I found the things that they're looking for. So it's like, okay, have you really done the work? Have you really gone out of your comfort zone? Reach out to someone that you know, maybe in your network or something, that may be doing something, maybe not necessarily something similar, because people can be, it might not be the way to go. But someone that you know that might have contacts in that, and like, speak to them. The worst they can say is no. The worst they can say, or pay them for their time and find someone that's an expert in the field. But like that whole lie of like, I don't even know where to start. I feel like it's a little bit of a lie that we're telling you.
It's the internet. It's right there. So there are two kinds of problems that we talk about. So I like the idea. Overwhelm is number one. I think it's
number one. Yes, that's one.
Yeah, then, because just like any other person, a go-getter, someone that's maybe hasn't started yet, there is always, I feel like my brain is always working and just, go. And it could be overwhelming just even going through your list on a Monday. But we get it done. It's overwhelming to go through life right now, but we have to, I feel like you said, if you're serious, then we have to move forward. You have to take that step, especially for resources that are free. And I also love that you mentioned being willing to find a mentor, someone that can help you with that information, because it is kind of bizarre to reach out to someone and say, hey, I want to launch what you're doing. Give me all your details, right? So you have to be willing to pay if you're serious for that information. So I love that. What else is another reason?
Okay, so another reason, obviously, and I think the more I say overwhelm is the first one, but the more prominent and the more like the one you hear most of the time is fear of looking stupid or fear of failure. And I think actually they can be broken into two. The fear of failure and the fear of looking stupid are two different things. But as humans, we're just so like obsessed with the idea of looking stupid to people that don't pay your bills. And I think it's such an interesting thing because
we care about what people think, right? Imposter syndrome, or I guess part of it is imposter syndrome, but the second part is like, how do I look to other people?
And it's so interesting because even me that I'm saying this right now, I know that this is something that I actively have to fight. It's beyond even like it's imposter syndrome driven, but now it starts to even like evolve into things of like, okay, so wow, people are going to realize I've made all this noise about launch and I haven't sold a thing. Or people are going to make this, I've made this whole thing about, oh, this is my thing, launch this. But like I have only 2 people have clicked on that link. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, at the end of the day, like you've created this business, and I know that it's social media that has created, like not social media alone, but the generation, our ever evolving right now, right here generation is like, we forget that businesses are a long-term thing. They're not like a short haul, grab everything you want in the first 2 weeks and then that's it. you start to see the work, you start to see the growth, and you start to see the reward from actual consistent growth. Like when I was in like business school, when I was in law school, like the whole idea was what they taught us was that everything is like you don't get a return on your investment in the first couple of years. It's an ongoing relationship. But we've forgotten that because we are so sold on the make $1 million today after launch like model.
Right
when
now,
in reality,
yeah.
like it's a rolling ball that is consistent and has constant flow. So I think for us, that's already the answer to the lie that we're telling ourselves in the beginning. Like, I don't want to look like, oh my God, my followers are going to think I'm stupid, and all these imaginary and real haters that we have. Like, but these people aren't paying your bills. These people aren't with you. These people aren't guiding your passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that one is the biggest thing I hear. And then obviously the fear of failure, which is a natural human development. It's a natural human aspect. Like, who wants to do work and fail?
Right.
Like, nobody wants to do work that's going to crash.
But then you never know if you don't try.
Exactly.
I feel like you owe it to yourself first and foremost. Like for me, I have something that's brewing in my head. I have to see it through. Like I think for me, the way I conquer that is I will research the domain, see if it exists. I'm a serial domain buyer because I feel like if I have the domain, that's step one, right? Like we just have to take action. I'm more action and I don't want to keep talking about it. And then people tell me like, oh, that was fast. I'm like, well, it's in my head.
That's
and and if it fails, I don't think there's failure in a bad way. It's a lesson. And then you don't quit, but you readjust, in my opinion. You just tweak it. Yeah, and learn.
Yeah, that's literally my whole ministry. Like my entire thing about launching that shit is that idea that you launch that shit, then you fine tune. Like, okay, obviously nobody wants to just launch blindly. That's not the point. And nobody's preaching that. But what we're saying is fight past the fear and fight past that lying thing in your head that's trying to hold you back, because you do not have to launch perfectly, because even some of the most perfectly launched products have failed. Many of the most perfectly curated, aesthetically pleasing launched products have failed. Right. Even some we found out they were scams. Look at Elizabeth Holmes, or what's her name? Like there's different things that can happen there. So like it's more about like, and this is the reason why, like Akeshi, I'm the same. Like I'm the kind of person that needs to get it out there, otherwise my brain will suffocate it.
Yeah.
Like, the fear and the imposter syndrome will just suffocate the whole idea till it burns out. So for me, it's also about like, sticking to whatever schedule I'm going with in that regard, like I'm just going ahead with it, and then fine tuning as I see, because at the end of the day, like you can have all these scenarios in your head, but you actually have to try it on real customers. You actually have to try it on a real audience before you can tweak it and decide if you've perfected or like you've honed whatever that craft or product or offering is. So that's mine too. Like it's just pushing past it, and I love that action because it's the same thing I do.
Yeah, I'm just more like them. And then when I put it out there, which is the scariest thing, like, people tell me he didn't like publish or share. It's the scariest thing. Like, I've been sitting on this post for 15 minutes, but once you do it, it's so liberating and it's so freeing. And that fear of course, you're looking for your first like, and you're like, oh, thank gosh, someone likes this. Like we need validation from other people. So we have to, it's just this thing we have to constantly fight. I think even the most successful people go through that, where you have self-doubt and imposter syndrome and voices in your head. But most important, I think we're so worried about what people would think versus what we are so passionate about. And I think we have to find a way to turn that around.
I agree.
So let's talk about like how we can get past this fear. Like what would you say would be the first step? So if I have an idea, I have this amazing product that I don't even know if it's great, but I haven't put it out there, what would be like my first step
to getting in? Okay, so for the first thing, I think first of all, write it down. Like there's so many ideas that come up, and I know this is at the most basic level, but it's so important that you write them down as it's coming, because a lot of things, especially with fear and especially with emotions, like with adrenaline in general, you don't retain as much because you're just in like auto drive. So like, because these things are coming to you, like write it down, like have something written down, because that's what's going to pay you on the long run. Because then that's where you start fleshing out what this idea is, and you start assigning tasks to yourself in terms of what you need to get done to be able to launch. Like for instance, like I think that it's really, it's so basic, but it's the beginning of like your idea. For instance, like let's go back to my basket business that I'm doing. I've written it down, and now I have to figure out where to find the raw, if it's raw materials, if I'm making it myself, where am I going to find the raw materials? I need to assign myself to Google or to search or do the research behind that. who do I know that's in the market that's doing the same thing? This down, so I can see what kind of products are out there and decide whether or not I want to come with a competing product, or if it's going to be similar, or if in fact there's even like a variety of products out there that are possible. And then, these are the things that you now start trying to flesh out here. Like, what kind of marketing channels are available for me? Like, where's my market in this regard? Like, who wants to buy baskets? Like, who am I trying to target? This is where you start, like, a lot of people do go through a mentor or a coach of some sort, like in terms of getting that, especially like how you mentioned, like targeting someone, a mentor in your industry, like someone that maybe is willing to teach and willing to bring up someone, because then you can have like pay for, or in certain situations, maybe pay for the person's coffee, take them out to lunch or whatever, and speak to them and just have a general conversation. Then you know whether or not it's a paid service that they're going to be requiring, but at least you even get an idea of the market that you're trying to penetrate. I think it's so important. And it all starts from even putting that in paper and deciding whether or not this is even going to be possible. Because then I know people are 50-50 on business plans, because some people have launched without a business plan and have been successful. But then for some people, business plans are great, because then you're able to at least evaluate what money you have in hand and what money you think or are going to need to spend, or money that you might like generate, and money that you are hopeful to generate in the long term. And a business plan will help you do the work. It helps you.
I like that. For some people, they need a business plan. Some people don't.
Some people don't. Yeah, some people don't.
If you launch and you run out of money halfway and your production is stopped because you didn't plan that properly, the finance part. And I think being realistic with what you can do and when you can do it.
The realistic part is so essential. I feel like that's one part. We lie to ourselves on paper, like we lie to ourselves in our head. So maybe on paper it'll be easier for you to see, but like easier for you to at least document and see what it is that you financially and feasibly can do.
Yeah.
So that you're not the person that's running out of steam halfway, because people don't do work on credit that often, especially now if you don't have a history.
Yeah, you need money for sure. Yeah. So write it down is your number one. So
write it down is my number one for sure.
Write it down. I'm a massive note taker, so I love that. I was going through, but on my iPhone. So I have maybe 200 notes. And I just write stuff down. And I've gone back to notes from 2016. And I'm like, and it's an idea I had that just resurfaced. I'm like, oh my, I can't believe I wrote this down in 2016 and now I'm going to do it.
And now it's coming. And it's also great to track progress. It's also great to track your timeline and see where you're going. Honestly, I think it's like the first thing. And then obviously for me with launching, I need to vet the name. Like if I'm doing a business and it's in, like, even in the name, like the initial name, because sometimes it does change. For instance, I formed a company called Legally Set, which is what we're talking, like, is the contract template side. Up until like 4 months ago, it was called Legally Present. And I changed it because halfway through, and then went immediately to vet the name, only because I decided that Legally Set obviously made more of an impression and it was easier to understand what the business was about.
Yeah, I love that.
So like for me, vetting the name is such an integral step of the whole process. So I will check, obviously you do your Googles, purchase the domain and all the variations that you intend to at least explore. So if it's a .com, if the .com is not available, a lot of people do .co, but I always do try to find a .com as well that I can park for sure.
Yeah.
And then make sure that you've done, like, just like you're purchasing the domain, there's no fun in having a domain and like several variations of a social media handle. Cohesion is always the best thing. Everybody wants to have a brand, because not all of those names can fit on your business card if you have a business card. So it's easier for you to just be like, oh, it's this and then it's this on all handles. But obviously that's not necessarily the easiest way. Social media like Instagram and Twitter have been on for so long that most of the time you won't find those handles, but try and find something that's closest and most easiest to find on SEO and park them. Like, it's free. Not the domain, but like the social media handles are free. There's no reason why you should. Because you don't want to have to start fighting with somebody or trying to have somebody, like, I remember I had read something that this woman, Lara Casey, who owns Southern Weddings magazine, had gone about how they had so they never could, like, they were trying to get the domain years later because somebody else had it who wasn't really using it, and the woman was asking for like $10,000-$15,000. So like, I mean, eventually I don't know what ended up happening with that case, but like, you don't want to have to start doing that. So like, once you have the idea, go ahead and park those names, because it's $14.99, even if it's $149.99, depending on what you find, just park it, because one day it might, when it's of value.
Absolutely. I always say, like, imagine if OprahWinfrey.com was available and
Listen,
I bought it and I will sell it back to her for,
exactly.
and they, people would pay for their name, and it makes,
Okay, because
it makes no
yeah, I
sense to
mean,
have your name out there. And do you
exactly.
recommend buying the extensions as well? So like I do that too, where I buy the .com, but I buy the
I
.net,
buy the
that,
extensions. I
all
don't
the
buy
different
all of
extensions.
them all the time because it could add up like monetarily over a long period of time. But I do buy the ones that I think are of most value to me and the ones
Right.
that I feel like will conflict with my brand if somebody else purchased it. So
Like the
even
.net, right? Like I took those out, even like my
yeah. Oh, the
name.
.net. Yes, I took
Yeah.
I took so many, but now it's adding up now that because this is like for instance when I started Isle Perfect, which was my original brand, I did Isle Perfect, I did Isle Dash Perfect, I did Isle Perfect.co, I did Isle Perfection, I did Isle Perfect Bridal, I did so many, and I actually
Right.
still own a bunch of them. But like, do the ones that you feel like if it's in your industry, because I mean, some of them might not really like if you're trying to prioritize. There's a bunch of extensions you can purchase, but then there's also ones that are so similar to your brand sometimes that it could be a likelihood of confusion if somebody else owned it. So I
Yeah.
always try to do that work. But obviously, in the beginning, if you're just trying to like start lean, then you can purchase the ones that are most relevant to you and park them because you don't know which one you're actually going to end up using as your main one. And even if you do, still you don't want a likelihood of confusion. So that's always the first step for me. And then the social media handles, because the social media handles are of huge value now, especially in
Absolutely.
our new generation. Your social media is your beginning. It's the start of your gallery. It's your initial introduction for the people that are finding you via social. It's their initial introduction. And obviously social media handles, Instagram, Facebook, they do have high SEO. So most likely if somebody's searching your brand name, it'll be one of the things that come up first on a Google search. So
Yep.
why not have them like very tidy, you know?
Yeah. And I love that, it's something we coach about too, having a consistent
Yeah,
events or
consistency.
release that all over, so people are not confused, like, is this you or
Yeah,
something like that. But
exactly. I get
also,
many times.
yeah, and I love the idea of parking these things because one, social media is free. So for
Yeah,
example, Cash Designs is not an active page that I use, but it's parked, and I have so many names parked
hmm
because I don't want anyone else to have it. And if someone it's available, someone else can take it. But
yeah,
I don't want a confusion with someone going to a similar page or
yeah.
someone launching something and taking a similar name, and I
Mhm.
wasn't smart enough to put that away.
Park that name.
And
Yeah, I think
free.
that especially when you don't own a trademark. So like that's
Yeah.
another whole conversation for another day. But like obviously, like with certain things, if you have a registered trademark, sometimes you might have good chances of getting that page taken down if the person is infringing on your trademark in any way, or if there's a strong likelihood of confusion that your registered trademark is being infringed in that case because people think that that brand is yours. I own
Yeah.
a trademark where another brand, which is a party company, had created like an offshoot of their like offshoot, a party planning company had created an offshoot of their own company called Perfete by something. Well,
Mm.
it took maybe 5 hours for Instagram to take it down once I presented them
Wow.
the trademark.
I love how your lawyer brain just kind of
Sorry, it always just explodes in the
I
middle of
love it. It's like you're
conversation.
creative and you're like, wait, but legally,
But wait a minute.
yeah.
Mm, mm.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of legal,
So that's a
you
different
just launched
conversation.
Legally Set, which
Yes.
I've been obsessed, and I love the countdown you created for her. So I was like, what is she launching? Because you're like, it's going down in a few days. And I was so excited to see that because that's something we've talked about inside my coaching group. And we've talked about having templates, maybe not being able to afford an attorney
Yeah.
or spend that money, but having affordable, but the proper legal
Yeah.
documents for your business. It's so
Mhm.
important. So let's talk about that. How was that launch process?
Oof. So that process, and it's always interesting because, like I said, sometimes I can be such a huge hypocrite because a lot of times I come in here and I'm like, okay, launch, 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 but then the launch process can take so long, and it's the reason why I think it's probably the reason why I know so much about it. Like for instance, I knew that I wanted to launch this. I think I even told you Akashi about it when I told you it was coming out in
You did,
January.
yeah.
It was
But I
supposed
think,
to
like you
come
said, it was a different name.
Yes, it was a
Yeah,
different name. It was everything. And it was supposed to come out in January. I had told you about it. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I
yeah.
had already retained my web developer. Like I checked, it was October last year. But this is what ends up
Wow.
happening. It's a combination of laziness and like imposter syndrome. When they come together, they make magic. Because
Mm,
then they just hold you back because it's like, okay, but then I've seen this person already has this brand. And you've thought about this individual from anybody else. Do you know what I
right.
mean? But then you realize that, like, one thing I say, launch it, period. Like, launch it. Because launch it even if
Love it.
somebody else has it. Launch it even if 1,000 people have it. Launch it even if it's saturated. Launch it because you bring something unique, and you will be able to do and realize that it's something that you're bringing that's different from the other person. Like I'm bringing my event and industry experience, or like my legal and industry experience into things, because I'm also a creative. Yes, that is my experience, and my launch is unique to me because my offering is unique to me, because the way you handle and deliver everything is going to be different. So I had to come over that. I had to come over that hill first. Like I had to do that. And then I'm like, okay, now, God, there's so much that I have to do. There's so many things just running in my head. If you're a creative listening to this, you know that on any given day, in any given hour of any given second, there are 50,000 things running in your brain at the same time. Especially if you're now a multi-hyphenate, like maybe you have different industries that you're working in. The thing is just shooting across every border because you can't seem to like you, that's how you process, that's how you work. But when that becomes a problem is when you have one thing that you have to get out. Like that thing now becomes like, oh, I don't have the mental space for it now. Like, where do I even start getting the work done? It's the reason why I said the whole thing about writing it down, because writing it down helps you target and get everything done like much easier. Like for instance, I have a freebie launch checklist that I'm actually even starting in November for people that are on that visit legallysaid.com. But like in there, I just basically went through my own lunch checklist. Like I went through it.
You were your own teacher or your own.
I had to be my own teacher. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, first things first, have you secured the domain? Have you done this? Like, have you checked who else is out there? What are their offerings? How are you different? Or what is it that you're bringing that's different? And I knew for me, I can 100% say that I'm a pretty good lawyer. Well, actually, I'm a great lawyer. So I know that I'm coming in from
that. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying it from that perspective. Do you know what I mean? So I know that whatever my legal documents are, I can stand by them. You know what I mean? So I'm doing that. But then I'm also just creating these documents. But then given the 10 years of industry experience that I have, like, okay, so what is it that everything about my brands have always been tailored to what my preferences are. So I've created that the same way. Like, okay, so what are my pain points? What will be the other person's pain points? And then I try to put it together. So that was my thing with getting over that hump for me.
Yeah.
And then going through the checklist and just making sure that I was getting everything. Do I have a business registered? Because I don't want anybody to sue me. Because people always never know when to do that. Like, do they just want to launch right away and not have those things done? And I know some people have been successful that way. But for me, it's always great for me. And it gives me peace of mind to have my back end sorted before my front end.
Absolutely.
So that's really how it's always been. And then I started to speak to industry professionals like you, like with the launch. I spoke to you. I asked you like, well, what is it? And you're like, oh yeah, you should come speak to my coaching group, because like this is the industry and this is it. Because you can't say you're working for people when you're not doing the work. Like you don't know anything about the pain point. So that has all contributed, and that was really how I got to the point of, okay, I'm ready to launch.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. But I also love what you said just now about launch it, even if it's out there, because your launch is unique to you, because there's no service that is so brand new, right? There's nothing you can think of that is a true 100% invention. It was inspired by something you saw. It could have been years ago, but if you look it up, it does exist. But what's different is how you brand it and the experience and how you launch it, because that's unique to you. And there's that little spice that you're going to throw on it that makes you different. Yeah, so that's amazing. Well, congratulations. I'm super excited. It's Legally Said on Instagram, you guys, and I promise everyone that owns a business that doesn't have your legal documents, get on it now, because there's something you said, it was a previous coaching, the cost of not having the proper legal documents, it's
add up.
Right? Close to nothing.
Exponentially larger than how much you would have to clean up your mistakes. That's the only thing that I have to say with law. Law is one of those things that you don't want to make a mistake in the beginning, because experience is very expensive.
Yeah. So while launching, be smart.
Be very smart, especially think about the legal, think about the accounting, because those things, two things you don't want on you is the IRS or the court.
Yeah. Oh, I think every time I see the words IRS, I'm like, oh my gosh.
You triggered. Everybody is like, oh, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, but then you feel more confident knowing that you've taken the right steps and you're not just winging this, because there's certain things you like having a registered business, having the proper legal documents.
Yeah.
And then of course, having that motivation. But I also love that you said, share with someone, because a lot of people sit on ideas and do not share.
I know it's a very I see those quotes a lot online, like work
Yeah.
hard in
Like
silence
keep
and
it. I'm
like
like,
keep
no,
it, like don't let your, this is, first of all, this is not the Bible, sis. Like it's not, don't let your right hand know
right.
what the left hand is doing or anything like that. First of all, like it's always, things sound really amazing in your head. Things
Mm,
sound really amazing in your head. And I'm not saying that they're not amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like they could be really amazing, but the whole thing is that you're not creating you're not creating the product solely for yourself. So it
yes.
has to be like, for instance, my legal documents are vetted by 3 other attorneys. I made
Mm,
sure to have 3 other attorneys do it because there's always a blind side. And
yeah.
you want to make sure that the blind side is not you and that you're not responsible for that, because that is also expensive to fix. So
Yeah.
like you need to be able to get insight, which is the reason why I recommend like customer surveys in the beginning. Actually, I don't know if you remember, I sent out a survey at one point earlier in the year
Yeah.
because I wanted to get feedback as to what people are looking for and what people
What
would,
they struggle with. Yeah.
what they struggle with, because you need to like, a lot of people won't tell you this, but you need to really figure out what the customer pain point is, the reason why they're paying money. And you'll find that now, even given the year that we've had, people are going to be
Mm,
tighter in their hand and very more specific about where they're spending their money. So don't
mm,
just create because you're creating. There's space for that as well. Create, if you're an artist, create, but after a while you will find that you have to review what the customer likes and see what your target audience and the people that you are trying to bring in, what they are about and what they need, so that you
yeah.
can satisfy that and also align that with what you're creating.
And then you fine tune, like you said. There's nothing that's launched perfectly. Even
No,
in my
no
business
such
right
thing.
now, I'm constantly looking, like scratching things out.
Yeah, and
And
seeing what isn't working, what is working.
yep, don't want to do this anymore. Or you might remove one piece of your business
Mm-hmm.
that you're like, "Nah, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't love this anymore." But you're moving forward because one launch leads to another. Your first business,
It brings in another.
it
It might
just
just be the
unravels.
starting
Yeah.
point. The first
Yeah.
business might just be the starting point. I mean, I know that like some people are so like what were we talking about at the beginning about passion fueled things. With
Mm.
passion, sometimes also it creates blind sides. It might make you delusional, it might make you whatever, but it's also what fuels the business. A lot of
Absolutely.
money fuels the business too. Please do not forget that. But
Yeah.
like, but it's also really important. Like, it might just be the stepping point into whatever your real purpose or whatever your real actual function of business is going to be. You never know.
Mhm. Yeah, but you're never gonna find out if you don't launch it. If you don't launch that shit, basically, just
Okay.
I'm a go like and I have that in me, but I realize a lot of people are not like that. It takes more. It takes a lot more, and I
A lot
think we
more
need to
proof.
recognize where we our strengths and where we struggle, and then find people to help us
Mhm.
share with your trusted friends. It doesn't have to be with
Mhm.
everyone. And then they're gonna help you say, you know what, also might be a great idea. Like even within my team, I was
Mhm.
sharing, you know what I'm thinking? And they're like, oh, we love that. What if we did this? I'm like, oh, I like that.
I love that.
So
I
by
love that.
sharing, we're able to create something better. And then we fine tune along the way.
Mhm.
But it's a journey. It's never perfect. But I love that you're such a fearless leader and
Mhm.
you're encouraging creatives and entrepreneurs to just go for it and just launch it because why not?
Yeah, I know people that have launched on $100. I know people that have launched on 1,000. I know people that have launched on 10,000. I know people that have launched on 100.
Yeah.
And a few of my clients have launched on higher than that. But like,
Yeah.
it's like there are different variations. The $100 would be tight sometimes. So be ready to at least put in some money. Like if it's something that you're taking serious, be ready to put in some money with your chest, because the whole idea is that you are hoping and you are working so that you do not fail. Yes,
Yeah.
failure is a side effect of launching. It's something that happens because we're all evolving, and honestly, you won't know if you're going to get it right if you don't try.
Mm,
But like,
exactly.
you need to be ready to take yourself seriously so that everybody else can. And I
Yeah.
think that's just my biggest thing.
I love it. I love it. So march on, people. Let's keep going. Whatever those ideas are in your head, just launch it and see where it leads you.
Yeah.
I think the journey of entrepreneurship is so beautiful because when I look back on, and I do, that's leads to my next question. When I look back on my journey, I have zero regrets.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent money on things that I'm like, oh man, like
Yeah.
I remember doing a shoot for a product I launched it and I didn't, it's no longer a passion of mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's tweaked actually, but it's not what I
What,
originally did.
not the initial form.
And I
Mm-hmm.
spent so much money on that shoot. But I have zero regrets because I took the lessons I took is so much more, so much
Mm-hmm.
more value than the monetary aspect of it. Like you learn to become a better business person. You learn to become um, more confident in your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And and less of what people think. So, and I know that all too well. No one
Yeah.
is ever going to sit and say, "Oh, I don't have imposter syndrome. I'll call you a liar," or "I'm
Yeah.
not afraid,"
Mhm.
because we're human beings and naturally we're going to get there.
Mhm.
But if you, what advice? And this is my next question for you. What advice would you give your younger self? Like, could be from 10 years ago.
Oh gosh. See, the same thing that I've been shouting over and over is take it seriously. Like take it
Mm,
seriously from like I get it. There's a difference between a hobby and a business. You know what I mean? And it's okay for you to have both, but it's something that you should take seriously from the beginning. For instance, like I actually said it in something I spoke at last week. Like my biggest mistake was not taking my initial brand as seriously as I wanted it to be. Like it started from a passion project. It was a hobby. I was blogging my wedding. So I started this company called Perfect that actually just bloomed into something of its own. But
amazing.
for me, it had always been something that I wasn't doing it because I was like, it wasn't a business from the beginning. Do you know what I mean? So for me,
So it's
it's
just
something
like
that
something
fall into my
fun
hand.
to do. Yeah.
Exactly. So I had found so much joy and in that original form of it, and it grew. Like all of a sudden, I'm seeing millions of viewers on something that I didn't even realize I was doing for anything. At the
Yeah.
same time, I did register my trademark. I did register the business. I did do all of that, but like that's not the point. But still, in the heart of it, it was never a business for me. And I found myself 8 years later realizing that something it had worked too much as a hobby for so long that I'd lost a hold of it, and it was so hard for it to become a business again, which is the reason why I rebranded, because I lost
Wow.
I lost complete passion for it. I was not interested. I was featuring just, it was like a run of the mill, because I'm like, okay, so this is what it is now. This is what it is. So let's just keep working towards that. But I found
Mm.
zero passion from it and completely rebranded the whole thing. Had this amazing name, everything. It was all perfect. I was like, oh my God, this is just the perfect name. But for me, I had literally lost every interest in doing that in that form anymore. So I
Yeah.
created a whole new brand out of it. And from the very first day, I have taken it as seriously as I wanted it to be taken. And for me, that has shown in the content that I'm featuring, and it's shown in the brand that I'm creating, regardless of how
100%.
how big the old one used to be. I'm just so content because I'm finally taking something as seriously as I want it to be. And that was
Mm.
never the case with Our Perfect. So that for me is the biggest part. Just take it as seriously as you want it to be, because
Yeah.
like
Wow.
obviously I agree that mistakes happen, you fine tune and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
because you're investing so much time and value into it, like it's really important that you also try to create that structure within your business as it grows. Otherwise it will get out of hand. Like it'll get out of
Love
hand and you
that.
find
I
yourself,
love
because
that.
what happens once the passion is out of it? Do you still want to continue your business? If so, do you actually have the structure and systems in place to actually continue regardless of passion? Because
Hmm.
business is the thing about it. A lot of people create businesses that are bigger than them. A lot of people create
Mm.
businesses that grow beyond whatever their initial landscape or initial thing is, but you have to be ready mentally and professionally, internally and externally, for that structure to rise and for that scale to actually happen. So
Mm.
that was me. That's my biggest thing. Just take it as seriously from the beginning, or
Yeah.
at least during the period of you transitioning and growing, make sure you're taking stock and fine tuning and structuring the way it needs,
Mm.
because you could also sell the business. What happens if you're selling?
Mm.
Do you have your structure in place? Whether or not, like, when it's time for you to actually sell, the
Yeah.
domain name that we've been talking about, like, oh, like you can buy it from somebody, but you could also need to sell the domain name with the business. And having a proper domain name, a set domain name of value, could be a great thing when you're selling the whole thing and taking stock of how much your business is actually worth. These are
Yeah.
little things, but these are the things that keep me up at night.
Yeah. No, I love that. That is excellent advice. It's to take it seriously.
Yes.
Okay. So this is so good. And I'm just absorbing the information. I'm like, wait, am I taking everything seriously? I'm thinking about things I'm not taking
You're just going
seriously,
with the flow.
and things that need to go. I just made a list recently and I was like, two things on this list have to go.
You see,
I
that's
realized
taking it
from
seriously.
just looking at everything and just evaluating
Mm-hmm.
my time, and I realized two things I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to do one-on-one coaching anymore. I like my group coaching
Mm-hmm.
session. And I don't want to do workshops anymore.
And then that's it.
That's
If it's not,
it.
this is what happens. And you've launched already. Like, you are literally an exact example. This is what we mean by fine tuning. Fine tuning doesn't necessarily mean like you have to fine tune every single offering. Sometimes you need to take restock and take evaluation of what the offerings are and see what's not paying you. Are you
Yeah,
spending more of your mental and emotional and financial labor on doing these two individual things when you could be
exactly.
rest and have a better lease on life? Like, these are things that
Absolutely.
happen.
Yeah.
I'm
So it's
glad you.
like I know I have a passion for teaching. I just realized that those two things I don't want to do anymore because when I add it all up, it's not working. But I do want to coach. I know half of the listeners just went like, holy crap. I'm
No,
so
yeah, yeah, no, this is your
I've been getting
announcement,
when is
right?
the next cash experience, but that's
Mm-hmm,
that journey we're talking about. And through that, we'll launch something new, which are online courses. I want
mm-hmm,
to put my energy into online courses. So this is that journey we're talking about. I'm not just saying I don't want to do this anymore and I'm done. I'm just going to repackage and launch something new.
I like.
They can still offer the same thing it was offering, but it's like what's easier on me, what's less mentally draining,
Training.
what's
Mm-hmm,
physically emotionally. I was telling someone the first day of my workshop because I had no clue what I was stepping into. And this was
mm-hmm,
what 6, we did 9 workshops. I was
mm-hmm.
literally in the parking lot of Kennecott Brothers, which is a wholesaler, crying because there was everything went wrong. And after my 30-minute crying session, I was like, okay, let's get
Get
back
it.
into it. But people don't see that side and they just see like and they assume, oh, you're making all this money. And
Mm-hmm.
but I realized that whole thing, because we tend to do too much,
Yeah.
it was
It's
like, okay,
sucking
scale it
everything down. Yeah, like
too
you
much.
find
Yeah.
yourself. I think
Yeah.
after maybe the 5th or 50th time, you have to go into your own pockets and you're spending, and then all of a sudden you find yourself like with a minus in your
This is
account, and
so
you're like, wait
smart.
a minute,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense. I'm literally bringing in this amount of money a week. So how is this money going away? It's because there's
Yeah.
stuff like there's drains, there's drainage, like it's a like drains, yeah, like
Yeah.
things that
If
are
it's not
sucking you.
profitable, then it's not to me,
Mhm.
it's not a good business.
This is what
Even
you,
if
this
it's
is these
you're
are the things
passionate
you
about it,
evaluate.
it has to be profitable.
Yeah.
Okay, this is so I could literally talk to you all day, but I know you we need to wrap up. So I have a question about, so I asked this for all the guests, like how would you define success?
Oof, I love this question. And I'm so glad that this question is coming now so that I can have this answer packed so I can use it from future events. But like for me, I define success as being able to breathe, like being able to breathe. Like I'm not just running all the time, but still like, and obviously by breathing, I mean like being able to breathe because I have my bills paid. And I also have enough money in the bank that I know that I'm not going to be destitute in any form, but also like being able to just breathe because I've gotten the stuff that I have inside of me out. Because that part, the trapped
Mm,
spirit is the worst feeling. Oh my
yeah.
God. Having a trapped idea can like just keep you up at night nonstop. But most importantly for me, success is actually resonating with the people that I'm trying to help beyond anything. Like it's not even just like resonating with my tribe, resonating with the people that like the the response I get from clients, like when they say, "Oh my God, this contract is really amazing," and I'm like, "Okay,"
Mm,
or the
wow.
or the joy I bring through my inspiration website, like just resonating with the people that I'm trying to help beyond, like it's just everything to me. Like helping that bride, helping that mom who's trying to plan her perfect party or anything like that, or
Yeah.
helping that client secure that agreement or secure that business or anything like that. Peace of mind. That is just my biggest thing for me.
I love that so much. Well, I mean, you're such a badass first and foremost. And every time I talk to you, I'm like, let me go get my life together.
I'm a fear
But
monger.
thank you for dropping gems and sharing these really, really like this is gold in my opinion. And even just from the conversation, I've taken away a few things. I'm like, let me go tweak something really quickly
Yeah, go do
because
that.
we're forever students are always learning. And that
Mhm.
we learn by opening up and having conversations with amazing people like you. You're super smart. You're just this beautiful packaged
Oh, please, can I keep you? Because
a
yes,
big
thank you,
bow.
darling.
But what's next for you?
So for me right now, it's well, I just launched like what 3 weeks ago. So I'm all about like fine tuning my launch now, making
Mhm.
sure seeing what's resonating with people and seeing what isn't. So it's all about legallyset.com. But I'm ongoing. Everything is ongoing for me. I'm working
There's always something, and I
yeah, like
love
I'm
it.
working
Yeah.
on like just a few things in the background. But for me, like right now, it's all about Legally Set and Perfect. Like those are my two drain socks, but they're actually drain socks that I do like and are actually making sense for me in my
Mhm,
general plan.
mhm.
So I'm really enjoying that. So that's
Yeah, I
it.
love it. And I love the Perfect podcast that you have as well.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
it too. It's okay. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do, because it's basically me just speaking to women who are at various journeys of their lives, like just different things, whether it's your journey with business or your journey with like motherhood or your journey with like, even maybe like just starting something that's not, or something maybe you're even at the end of the journey, like in terms of like you've created this amazing thing and now you're transitioning into something else. I love talking to women, and Akeshi will be
Yeah.
on very soon. So just wait.
Oh, I'm ready when you are. Thank you.
Thank
So we can find you. So I know you have several Instagram. So on Instagram, we can find you at Legally Set.
And
And
at Perfete if you're looking for the event inspiration.
at Perfect. Awesome. Kunbi, you're a beast. Thank you for sharing your, words of wisdom and your knowledge. It's always so fun to chat with you, and
Same.
I adore you so much. So I can't wait to bring you back.
Yes, please, 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 please. Thank you, my darling. You're an absolute inspiration, and you know it, because I don't know. You must have 5 heads. You must. I'm positive. So
Just
yeah.
the one.
Okay, you say so. Thank you,
All right.
darling.
Thank you, doll. Have a great
Okay.
day. Kiss that cute little baby for me.
He is almost 3. He is not cute. He's
He's
just
such a, oh, he's such a boss though.
he's a boss. That's
Yeah.
what he is now. That's
And
where we're
his fashion and just his general swag. But that's you though, just so you know.
I've created my small
Yeah, that's you. Yeah, but he's so cute. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll be calling you soon.
Please have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.